There are objects most people think are neutral, decorative, harmless. Mirrors are at the top of that list. Before I left witchcraft, mirrors were never treated as furniture. They were treated as surfaces of focus, not because glass has power, but because attention does. And mirrors hold attention longer than almost anything else in a home. I remember being trained to walk into a space and immediately note where mirrors were placed. Not how expensive they were, not their shape, their position, because certain placements made spiritual access easier, not through magic, but through awareness, fixation, and atmosphere. Most people think demons need rituals. They don't. They need permission through agreement, and agreement often begins with subtle habits. Prolonged staring, late night reflection, emotional vulnerability paired with silence. Mirrors amplify all three. When someone stands before a mirror tired, emotional, anxious, or insecure, something happens internally. Thoughts become louder, identity becomes negotiable, accusations feel personal. In witchcraft, this was considered fertile ground, not because the mirror did something, but because the mind opened. I want to be very clear, mirrors are not evil. Glass is not cursed. This is not superstition, but placement matters. Just like doors, windows, and thresholds matter. There were 3 locations we were specifically taught to watch for, places where mirrors cause people to experience heaviness, restlessness, fear, or repeated intrusive thoughts, not instantly, gradually, quietly, over time. When I came to Christ, I removed fear, but I did not remove wisdom. I began to notice how often spiritual disturbance was linked not to dramatic attacks, but to environmental access points people never questioned. Some of you watching this have felt uneasy in your own home without knowing why. Others struggle with nighttime anxiety, distorted self-image, or heaviness that seems tied to certain rooms. This message is not about blaming objects. It's about understanding why certain placements create spiritual noise. In this video, I'm going to expose the 3 mirror placements we avoided or intentionally used, and explain why they matter. Not to make you afraid of your house, but to help you restore order, peace, and authority in it. Because when your environment supports your spirit, darkness loses leverage. And once you understand placement, confusion stops living rent free in your space. The most important place in any home was never the front door. It was the place of rest. In witchcraft, we were taught a simple principle. If you disturb rest, you weaken resistance. That's why mirrors placed where you sleep were always noted first. Not because demons come out of mirrors, but because mirrors interfere with peace, identity, and rest when placed in the wrong location. A mirror facing the bed was considered especially effective. Here's why. Sleep is when the body rests, but the mind transitions. Thoughts slow down, defenses soften, emotions surface without filters. When a mirror is positioned so that a person sees their reflection before sleep or immediately upon waking, it subtly keeps the mind engaged instead of settled. People begin checking themselves, thinking, evaluating, replaying the day, criticizing their appearance, questioning themselves. That internal dialogue is where influence enters, not dramatically, but persistently. I remember assignments where we were told not to attack a person directly, but to disturb their sleep rhythm. Restless nights lead to foggy days. Foggy days lead to poor decisions. Poor decisions open further doors. It's a chain. Mirrors near the bed also amplify nighttime fear. Many people report sensing movement, shadows, or presence, not because something is there, but because the mind is overstimulated in darkness. Reflection plus low light plus fatigue creates misinterpretation. Fear feeds itself. Another placement we watched closely was mirrors reflecting doorways or hallways visible from the bed. This created a sense of exposure. The body remains alert when it should be resting. That alertness slowly turns into anxiety. When I became a believer, I realized how many Christians prayed for peace, but unknowingly disrupted it through their environment. Not through sin, through ignorance. Let me be clear again. The mirror itself is not the problem. The problem is where attention is drawn when the soul is meant to rest. If your sleep has been disturbed, your dreams restless, or your nights heavy, the issue may not be spiritual attack. It may be spiritual noise. And once rest is restored, influence loses its strongest advantage. In the next chapter, I'll expose another placement we intentionally used, where identity and emotions are most vulnerable during the day. The second mirror placement we paid close attention to was not in the bedroom. It was in the place where people confront themselves emotionally, bathrooms. In witchcraft training, bathrooms were never about hygiene alone. They were places of isolation, vulnerability, and honesty. People lock the door. They are alone. They are unguarded. They speak freely to themselves. Now combine that with a mirror. Most people don't realize how much inner dialogue happens in front of a bathroom mirror. This is where people criticize their bodies, replay conversations, rehearse arguments, and confess fears they would never say out loud. In the occult, this was understood as a place where identity agreement is formed. When a mirror is placed directly in front of you under bright light, especially when you are tired, emotional, or stressed, thoughts intensify. Small insecurities grow louder. Regret sounds more convincing. Accusation feels personal. We were taught something chilling. If a person agrees with a lie about themselves in isolation, it takes root faster. That's why mirrors in bathrooms, especially those directly facing the toilet or shower, were considered powerful points of influence. Not because demons appear there, but because people are most honest there. And honesty without truth becomes vulnerability. Another thing we watched for was mirrors that allowed someone to see themselves for long periods without distraction, standing, staring, thinking. That stillness feels harmless, but it opens space for intrusive thoughts to settle. Many people report sudden sadness, heaviness, or self disgust in bathrooms and don't know why. They assume it's stress. But often it's because that space has become a place of internal accusation rather than care. When I came to Christ, I had to relearn how environments affect the mind. Scripture says to take every thought captive, but no one teaches how space influences thought. Again, this is not about fear or removing every mirror. It's about awareness. If a mirror turns a private space into a courtroom where you accuse yourself daily, it's doing damage slowly. In the next chapter, I'll reveal the third and final placement we used most strategically, the one connected to thresholds, transitions, and spiritual authority in a home.